Hello, my name is Benjamin Lawrence-Sanderson, and I'm a SULI intern here at SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. Today I'll be talking to you about my project to study the silicon vertex trackers and the light-dark matter experiment. I'll answer a few big questions in the next 5 minutes. First, what is this experiment actually looking for? And how do we track and reconstruct different electron paths? Finally, we'll look at how we can understand and simulate sources of error in the trackers. But first, I want you to picture an invisible universe sitting on top of our own, filled with vast quantities of matter and internal complexity, but it's all hidden from us. Now, this sounds like fiction, but it's actually not. We now know that dark matter accounts for most of the mass in the universe. And even though it's so abundant, nobody's actually ever detected it here on Earth. Every single experiment that physicists have thrown at it, it's just gotten away. So that's where LDMX comes in. The light-dark matter experiment is a new attempt to find an exotic, unseen particle called the dark photon. Dark photons aren't actually dark matter per se, but they would be the force carrier that couples our particles to the dark matter particles. You can kind of think of them like a bridge that joins our standard model with the dark sector, which is where dark matter lives. So the LDMX experiment will take high energy electrons and use them to try to make dark photons. This experiment hasn't been built yet, but the plan is to use the electrons going to the LCLS beam dump and just redirect them into LDMX. At the heart of the LDMX experiment is the tungsten target. Electrons from the beam slam into this piece of tungsten and scatter off it. So for most events, you just get electrons that get deflected and a high energy photon gets emitted. Nothing special, this is all normal, nothing exciting. But what if instead the electron radiates a dark photon? Well, this would promptly decay to dark matter, which is invisible to our detectors. And since we can't detect this, it would look like that energy wasn't conserved in this event. So the LDMX experiment is designed to look for these exact type of events. So the first part of the detector are the trackers, and that's what we'll be focusing on. The trackers do exactly what it sounds like. They track things. So specifically, they track electrons before and then after they hit the tungsten target. Each panel registers the position, time, and energy deposited for every single individual electron. Now, they tell us where the electrons are. And you can kind of think of each tracker panel as a camera sensor. You know, it has pixels, and there are some key differences, but really each layer is making a movie of every single electron that's passing through the detector. Now, remember making a flip book as a child? You would just draw these pictures and make them slightly different from one page to the next. And when you put it all together, your brain kind of filled in the gaps and made it look like one smooth motion. This is exactly what we're doing. So instead of using our brains, we're using a Kalman filter algorithm. And this finds the best path that connects every dot without violating any physical laws. And looking at how this path curves in the magnetic field can tell us a lot of things. And we can make a good guess for the electron momentum, but it doesn't stop there. We can actually reconstruct its charge, time evolution, perigee location, track angles, and even So in the real world, we don't have perfect data, and we want to know how the reconstruction algorithm performs when things get tough. So here you can see what happens when the outlier traces cause a significant jump in our momentum, and because the tracker failed their extra hits. Here you can see what happens when we decrease the resolution in our trackers, and it causes our spectrum to broaden and get wider. And this is not what we want. So after all this, there's still more we can improve on. This spectrum here that you see was generated using only 4 GeV electrons, meaning that we should see a spike. But clearly this is not what we see. We see a lot of electrons being reconstructed at higher than 4 GeV, meaning they magically got more momentum, which is wrong. So what do we hope to gain by doing these tracker studies? Well, LDMX trackers hasn't been built yet, so running these simulations and understanding where we're getting unexpected errors give us a better chance of designing trackers and better algorithms. In the next few years, LDMX will begin taking electrons from the LCLS beamline to look for dark matter. So I ask, Next time you're looking up at the sky and at the galaxies and all the universe, consider just how much we haven't seen yet.